Hey, it feels different, right?
Hello and welcome to episode 19 of Fantasy Sports. Tonight I'm going to be talking about NFL like I usually do. With it being week 13 of the NFL, I felt like it was only appropriate for me to talk about the continual playoff changes and everything that's going on with big games like the 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, Seahawks, some big games that have a lot of playoff implications. So I'm going to start with Thursday Night Football, which was Seahawks, Cowboys, and then I'm head all the way into Monday Night Football. A lot of teams on byes this week, a lot of teams with big losses. And some injuries, but I want to start off, obviously, like I said, with Thursday Night Football. So the biggest takeaway I had from this game had to be that the Seahawks are a team that can compete. The Cowboys put up 41, the Seahawks put up 35, and it was a game that I genuinely thought was going to be won by the Seahawks at one point, especially with the way that DK Metcalf was playing. It was super impressive to see just how much he could do in such a little short time. Obviously, he doubled his touchdown total in one game for the season. With all that being said, though, Dak Prescott is looking like the MVP right now. I know there's been a lot of question about whether or not it's him, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts. I feel like Jalen Hurts has kind of fell off that conversation just because of the turnovers. He has 10 fumbles lost, and Dak's pretty much had the best season when it comes down to like what he's done in terms of not turning the ball over, in terms of how many touchdowns he's thrown, just the way he has a QB quarterback rating. He's pretty much leading the league in a majority of like the important stats. With all that being said, huge win for the Cowboys. I'm pretty sure they're one game behind the Eagles right now, and they have a big divisional matchup. So I'm pretty sure if they wind up winning, it'll be tied in this series. No, it'll be tied within the division. I'm not sure how it'll be changing for the conference. But regardless, big game for the Cowboys, Seahawks. And then another game that was, again, shockingly surprising was the Colts-Titans. I know that was a really big game just because the Colts won and, they're in the playoffs now and they've continued to play very, very good football. And it's shocking to see Gardner Minshew just go out there and dominate. I said this last week and I'll say it again. They look like a team that'll be really fun to watch in the playoffs. I know I'm excited for them, so I think one of the best things about them, although Jonathan Taylor was out, was the fact that they just have been playing such phenomenal defense. I know they let up 20 points to the Titans, but they always seem to just be able to keep themselves in the game enough for Gardner Minshew and that offense to, wind up winning the game. Obviously, Michael Pittman wound up catching the game-winning touchdown in overtime, but it was still like a really, really good game to watch. Obviously, the biggest thing that happened in the game was the Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins fight that was happening on the sideline and then the comments made after the game. But I think that's just, Will Levis making a poor timed decision to take out his frustration and DeAndre Hopkins making some bad comments after the game. A really big win for the Colts. Titans definitely are heading into the offseason looking to move Derrick Henry. I feel like at this point, just with the direction they're taking with Will Levis being the quarterback, and he's good. I would definitely say he's a talent. After the 4 touchdown game that he threw, it hasn't really been much that has come out of it. But still, he's a definite talent with his arm, what he's been able to do in a short amount of time after coming in and start and pretty much a little over halfway through the season. And then for the Falcons-Jets game, Falcons won 13-8. I didn't really watch much of this game. I was able to see that Garrett Wilson had 3 catches for 50 yards. They wound up putting in Trevor Siemian midway through. The Falcons came out and Desmond Ridder threw a pick, or he fumbled, but he didn't play a great game. Bijan Robinson didn't have a great game. Overall, just a really weak game as a whole. I think at this point, Aaron Rodgers should not come back. I know he opened his time window for when it comes to practicing, but I think the biggest thing for the Jets is going into the offseason knowing that they have a team that could compete, that needs a better offensive line, and making the proper adjustment to their roster to make themselves a really competitive team. But yeah, definitely an interesting game for the Jets, putting up 8 points. But yeah, I think it's a lost season for the Jets, and obviously the Falcons are competing for that spot in the playoffs just because of how bad their division is. But yeah, definitely our conference is. But definitely an interesting game. And then for the Lions-Saints game, they wound up winning 33-28. This wasn't as close a game as it seems. The Lions came out and they scored 3 touchdowns pretty fast, and the Saints kind of wound up coming up from there, down 21. But again, Jared Goff looked really good. Sam Laporta looks like a top 3, top 5 tight end right now in the league. That offense looked unstoppable. The defense has had its woes, and I think it continues to. And I think a big part of that is they just have no pass rush. They haven't had a great pass rush this year. And part of it is just the fact that they're not getting to the quarterback. I know how stupid that sounds when you say they have a bad pass rush, but they're not even getting in his face. It's more than just sacks. They're not really, making pressures, but they just haven't really been able to dominate the line of scrimmage, which, eventually you're going to get beat over top if you can't get pressure on a quarterback. He's just going to get comfortable back there. But the Lions really dominated this game on offense, and it wasn't really too much of a sweat. Derek Carr wound up going down. Jameis Winston came in through a 30-yard pass to Chris Olave. It's been back and forth with him all year with the injuries, so it's just kind of I'm out of the fantasy playoff race at this point, but I wish Jameis wound up playing sooner just because of how good Chris Olave is when he is in. He's not afraid to take those deep ball shots. But yeah, and then for the Broncos-Texans game, this was a really good game. This is the first game the Broncos have lost in 6 weeks. They lost 22-17. Obviously, they looked pretty good. It was a really close game at some points. And then, in the fourth quarter, Russell Wilson just kind of fell apart. He threw 3 picks. He threw the game-sealing pick. It did not look good. It was really ugly. CJ Stroud threw a really good game. Obviously, in this injury, Tank Dell went down with a season-ending injury, which no one wants to see just because he'd been playing so good. And on top of the fact that he'd been playing so good, they do look like they're going to wind up making the playoffs. So it kind of just is a lose-lose scenario for the Texans. Obviously, they win the game, but they lose their, one of their best young wide receivers, although they have Nico Collins, and they no longer have like the deep ball threat that Tank Dell brings, which is a lose-lose. You lose one of your best receivers, and you lose the fact that you have that deep ball threat. But still, great win, and confusing as to see where the Broncos are going to wind up landing if they can't win out. But still, especially where the Broncos were in the beginning of the season, it's extremely impressive to see where they've come. Because I just love Russell Wilson. Definitely a great game. And then for the Chargers-Patriots game, I'm not going to talk too much about this game. They won 6-0. The Patriots got shut out. It was a really ugly game from Bailey Zappi. Really ugly game from Justin Herbert. Austin Eckler looks really bad. I guess that's the best thing to take away. Since his week 1 injury, he's averaged 2.9 yards per carry. And Keenan Allen has not, let up on the gas, but it can't be only one guy, especially with Mike Williams going down again for another season-ending injury. It just hasn't looked good for the Chargers, and I don't even know if they wind up winning out what'll happen. And I'm not sure if the season's over for them. I'm not actually sure how that lands, but definitely a really bad game. And for the Cardinals-Steelers game, again, another game to not really talk about, as well as the Dolphins-Commanders game. Cardinals wound up winning. Kenny Pickett went down the quarter and a half mark, so like with 8 minutes going in the second quarter. Mitch Trubisky stepped in, didn't do much. Cardinals won 24-10. And I think this is kind of where the Steelers season turns. At this point we're a 7-5 team. I think we were 7-4 heading into this game. We should have been honestly 8-3. Now we're 2 games back where I wanted us to be, or where I thought we should be. And especially with our quarterback on it. Although Kenny Pickett is not great, he's still one of those players that can make it happen in the fourth quarter. He can figure out how to win a game, and I don't think Mitch is going to bring anything special to the Steelers other than ball management. And I think that really ruins the fact right after Matt Canada left, the fact that he just got injured, because we had a great game last week. So it's just definitely frustrating to watch. And then the Dolphins came out, beat the Commanders 45-15, beat them by 30. Ugly game. I think Tua at this point right now might be the best passer in the league, at least throwing the deep. But he looks so good, and it sucks because he's not going to win MVP. I don't think he can wind up winning MVP over guys like Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. But at some point, I really think he could have been respected for MVP earlier in the season if he just continued the gas. But he turned, it's one of those things where they just don't play good enough teams, and all the record mean. I know that might not play into MVP with stats and everything, but the way that Dak Prescott has went up against some of these stronger teams, and although Jalen Hurts had the gauntlet right now with the teams he's been playing, Brock Purdy and them have been doing very good, and same thing for Dak Prescott. And then another game that was not too entertaining, Buccaneers-Panthers. It came down to the wire, but the Buccaneers wound up winning. Big conference game in terms of standing, but it just was a bad game from Bryce Young. He's had a lot of those this season, but he actually leads the league in efficiency target passing. I'm pretty sure he's at 73.4 when he passes to an open or presumed open wide receiver, and it's a drop or incompletion, which is an insane stat just based off of how poor it seems as though they're playing. They're 1-11 right now, I think. I think at the end of the day, the Panthers aren't a bad team. Bryce Young's not a bad quarterback. The Panthers are definitely a bad team. I don't think Bryce Young is a bad quarterback. I think at this point, it's just the people around him in the offensive line he has aren't going to work with him. And, there was a stat the other day that was shown where it was Trevor Lawrence's rookie season compared to his, and they're pretty much identical. So I think, the first year eye test is something that only plays into so much. So, I mean, you always got to wait till that sophomore year hits, and you can see the changes in the front office and the changes on the team with the personnel and everything, for them to wind up really being, or you can really take the test of whether or not Bryce Young is a good quarterback. 49ers-Eagles game was pretty much the best game this week. The 49ers won 42-19. Deebo Samuel had 3 touchdowns. Brock Purdy threw 4 touchdowns. Chris McCaffrey got a touchdown. They looked really, really strong. I know the whole week leading up to it, Deebo Samuel had called James Bradbury trash. He was talking trash about the whole team. A.J. Brown was chirping back at him. So for the 49ers to come into Philly and, pretty much dominate from the start of the game, I think that was the biggest thing to take into account, because last year Deebo Samuel had said if Brock Purdy was in that game, it would have been a different outcome than the Eagles winning in the divisional championship leading up until the Super Bowl. So he came out and they stomped him just like they said they were going to. So at the end of the day, the Eagles are, like I said, running through a gauntlet of some of the best teams in the NFL right now. And they have a matchup with this week with the Cowboys. So it seems, just see how they come out against that win or that team, and if they can get the win there, it'll maybe not shake it up as much as you thought. But if the Eagles come out and lose again, it won't. Again, I mean, they were 10-1. I mean, they were bound to lose at some point, playing a team like the 49ers, only losing one game to the Jets and it being a close game, practically almost being undefeated, although they are not because they lost to the Jets. You're bound to lose one eventually, and losing it to the 49ers I don't think is an understatement to say that, the 49ers are one of the best teams in the NFL, and it's not always going to go your way on every given Sunday. And then for the Browns-Rams game, Joe Flacco came out. He threw 200-something yards, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Came off the couch, 40 years old. Looked really good. Defense let up 36, so it's kind of one of those games where, it was shaky, but, the Browns being in the playoff contention at some point, wanted to see what, a quarterback, a veteran could do. So you never know what's going to happen next week with Dorian Thompson, coming back from injury, if he's going to start, if Joe Flacco's going to start, what they want to do, heading into the fact that they could make the playoffs, especially in that division or in that conference and division. Because they could if they win out, I think they could wind up winning the division, just with how close it is between them. Oh, wait, no, sorry. The Ravens are going to win that. I wasn't thinking of them. But they could wind up making the playoffs, sneaking in at a wild card or something. But that'd be interesting to see. Chiefs-Packers game and Bengals-Jaguars games are the last 2 games, and the Chiefs-Packers game was something very, very interesting. Jordan Love and the Packers have won 3 straight, I'm pretty sure. They beat the teams like the Lions and the Chiefs. Another really strong Jordan Love performance, and Christian Watson performance. Super impressive to see. But I think, again, something I keep taking away from the Chiefs is just the fact that they never seem to get it going on the offensive side of the ball. Like, losing a wide receiver 1 has never been like so prominent for the Chiefs other than this year. Obviously, last year, they had Juju, they had Sky Moore, they had Marquez, and it seemed like, it was working with these not bad wide receivers by any means, but wide receivers who weren't necessarily a wide receiver 1, a bunch of wide receiver 2, 3s. But this season has been extremely different. It's been way more heavy on Travis Kelce and letting the wide receivers go to work and trying to let them get that run game going, and it has been working in the favor of Patrick Mahomes. But it's one of those things where, like, their current record is, I'm pretty sure they're 8-4. It's not loading, but pretty sure they're 8-4, and they will make the playoffs probably. But it's something I really question when it comes down to the time to win in the playoffs and win in the Super Bowl, if they could actually get it done. It's one of those things where I don't think it's a fixable problem. It's been a problem all season long, and I'm not sure how it's going to wind up turning out, but definitely something to watch. And then the last game, Jaguars, Bengals wound up winning 34-31. I know Jake Browning came out, threw a masterpiece. He had 300-something yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and Trevor Lawrence wound up getting hurt. Jamar Chase had a really big game. Travis Etienne had another strong game. Calvin really didn't do much. Christian Kirk wound up going down. So it's just one of those games where, like, it seemed as though it wasn't going to be this big shootout, but then it just wound up going back and forth. You expected the Bengals to come out and not really play as well, but they played extremely well. And I'm not sure how that winds up panning out into the playoff race for them if they wind up winning and continue to winning. What'll it be? Will Joe Burrow wind up coming back? But a very strong game on Monday Night Football, and I think it's been now like 3, 4, 5 weeks on primetime that the underdog has covered the spread in terms of sports betting. But definitely something to watch, and I'm excited to continue to see like how the upsets go, and as it dwindles down to the end of the season, what winds up happening in the changing of standings. No Giants game this week. I know I always talk about the Giants, but no Giants game this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you tune in for episode 20 next week when we cover the 14th week of football. Thank you so much.